to be motivated, to be driven, and to drive towards my goals than just anger. And so it never held me back. It always fueled me forward, but it was still very toxic.
Yes, well said. Anger can be a great motivator, but it's still a negative emotion, ultimately.
It's not healthy.
No.
Right.
To run on this fuel all the time.
It's a cancer. If you let it just eat at you and eat at you, yeah.
It's like running on carbs the entire time.
Yeah. There's a better option here. You don't have to be angry all the time.
It can work, but there's a better option.
Where I wanted to start off with was, how does it feel that combined you have the entire population of New Zealand dialing into your advice and thoughts and fears and everything else in between?
Well, for me, it's first of all the greatest honor of my life. Just to be honest about it, it's an honor I never thought that I would enjoy or be worthy of. But then a very close second is it's a huge responsibility, because anybody who watches YouTube much knows that there are certain trigger topics that you can make a video about and get 1 million views, right? And so there are some people in our sphere of influence who will do that. Make another apple cider vinegar video, or another lemon water video, or another green drink video, and they're not helping anybody, but yet they're getting 1 million views. And so I tried very early on, just because of my upbringing and other things, and also Neisha's constant vigilance of me not being a douche. So like, is this, it's going to get a ton of views, but is it going to help anybody? And so we've always kind of put our video ideas through this filter of, okay, I obviously want a lot of people to watch my videos, of course, but also it needs to be helpful. It needs to be understandable. It needs to be immediately applicable to people's lives. And just this morning, I was reading about a new study. I was like, ooh, this would be a great video. And as I was reading the study, it turns out it's a fruit fly study. And so I guarantee you there'll be 500 or 500 new YouTube videos about this study showing that blah, 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 blah. And they'll leave out, either because of ignorance or convenience, that it was a study in fruit flies, which may or may not be applicable to human beings, which most people who watch YouTube are human beings, and they actually want to know what's relevant to human beings. So I won't be making that video, because I can't apply that to people's lives.
Well, I suppose this is a great little segue, because the reasons for inviting you both on as this incredible purpose partners, power couple, whatever you want to call it, was somewhat selfish, because we were super excited to hear about the pregnancy journey and the accomplishments that you've both had in the last few years after overcoming Hashimoto's hypothyroidism and a lot of other challenges in between. And for context, for those who haven't heard of Anna and I's story, Anna and I, to this point, have had 19 consecutive miscarriages, of which 3 of those have been ectopics. And there's more detail around why that happened, and that related to some systemic childhood sexual abuse that Anna went through growing up in Russia, and 2 illegal abortions that took place, one of which that damaged her uterine wall. And we thought that was it. And we thought that was the reason. We thought that if we could fix the uterine wall, then that would be the solution to our challenges.
And then I did a dry fasting, 95 hours dry fasting, no water, no food, not even shower. And actually my endometrium grown from 3 millimeters to 14 millimeters, confirmed by the scan before and after. But then again, it continued to happening, and we were like, something else is happening. And so just recently this year, I found out that I have a hypothyroidism, similar to you, Neisha.
We're just waiting on confirmation that Hashimoto's is involved. It was diagnosed by the moon-shaped face and going through a lot of deep history, and I'm sure that you'll resonate with this. We'll know in the next few days, in fact.
I just did a full hormone panel, like full on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is a very long-winded backstory, but it's important in this context, because the reason we wanted to invite you on is that we know that we're going to solve this challenge, and this baby's going to be a bigger comeback than Lazarus. And we know that other people have going through and are going through similar challenges. And we just wanted to get your thoughts and ideas about that journey that you had. And what do we need to know that you wish you knew early on?
I would say I'm so proud of you guys for talking about this. It needs to be talked about more. I probably should talk about it more, but it feels almost like you're by yourself, even though there's other women out there struggling. It still feels like, is there anyone who needs to hear this? Maybe are people going to feel like I'm complaining, that sort of thing? But it's really important that you and I both share our stories. And I think one thing a lot of people who have an autoimmune disease miss out is the trauma factor as a risk factor, and stress being something that will keep you ill. So addressing the stresses and past traumas, along with food, obviously sleep, lifestyle habits, that's a very important part that gets left out a lot of time when we're talking about autoimmune diseases, because the food is so powerful that it's almost so easy to just focus on, well, just change your diet, decrease inflammatory foods, eat meat-based, eat plenty of animal fats. But if you are still holding on to all of that trauma and stress, that can keep you in a state of sickness, even if you're doing all the right things when it comes to food and stuff. So that's what I wish I would have known back then. People really didn't talk about root causes. They were mostly, do the AIP elimination diet, stop eating dairy, stop eating gluten. That was the main things you heard about. But really, the more I talk to other women who have autoimmune diseases, it seems like when they address those root causes, like the stress and the trauma, along with the diet, that's when things start to really heal from the feet up, right? So I wasn't prepared to get pregnant. Bonnie was a total surprise, because we did go through IVF to get pregnant with Beckett, which is stressful in itself. And it's not a guarantee, and you're spending all this money. And I knew I didn't want to go through that again. So we had a discussion maybe 8 weeks before I got the confirmation I was pregnant, where I was like, I'm not doing IVF again. I'm fine with Beckett. We're very blessed. Let's move forward with our life. And then 8 weeks later, I was in denial and finally took a pregnancy test. And I still didn't believe it. I took like 5 or 6 pregnancy tests. But what happened in that year before I got pregnant was a lot of healing and growth mentally, where I'd been eating meat-based for 5 years at that point and still had not gotten pregnant, right? But that year before I got pregnant with Bonnie, I really practiced stoicism and letting things go. And I cannot control this, but I can control my emotions about this. Just really trying to get my mind healthy along with my body. And I think that I can't prove that had a lot to do with it, but it definitely, in my eyes, had a lot to do with it.
There's so many different questions. Ken, Neisha, I want to ask you about, Ken, in terms of me in the supporting role, what are the things that I can do, and what can other spouses and partners do to support their partners in this health and healing journey?
Well, every husband has a different style, and every relationship is different. Me and Ken are very brutally honest with each other. And so he just would tell me to my face when I was getting upset about something, that, like, okay, well, what do you want to do about that? I'd be like, I don't know. I'm just upset. And he's like, okay, but you can't do anything about it. So just get over it. And that may not work for you two, but coming to a place where whatever she says you're allowed to say to bring her back to baseline, to remind her of where she needs to be going with her emotions. Yeah. That's the best way. And like I said, that's going to look different for you guys than it would for us, just because different people will have different personalities, and that's totally normal. But that response to her in those moments of maybe she's super stressed out about, the oven isn't working, or the car broke down, or any outside factor that she has no control over, just reminding her that let it go. You can't control that. We can only control us. And reminding her of what the goal is for you two. And the goal is to get her as healthy as possible, you two as healthy as possible as a partnership, and eventually get that sweet baby. And we weren't trying to get pregnant, but in him doing that, it did bring me to a place where it takes a lot to get me worked up now.
Yeah. And let me add to that, that kind of using that kind of straightforward language, it took us years of peeling away layers of self-defense that we had both built up. My go-to self-defense mechanism was deception. That's just what it had worked for me my entire life. Hers was just to be, an RBF, standoffish kind of introvert. And so we just lovingly yet persistently just she would peel away my layers and I would peel away her layers. And so this came from, we finally got down to what we think is the foundational definition of each other. And when you have that and you trust the other person with that foundational understanding of who you are, that gives you a degree of liberty. So when I would say something like that, because, some people listen to this and be like, well, what an asshole, right? But that's only possible when I say words, she knows me to the core, and she knows I'm not being an asshole. I'm not being an asshole. I am saying what I think she needs to hear at that time to reframe whatever the situation is. And so so many of these things depend on an untold number of variables: where you're at in your relationship, how healthy is your relationship, how strong is it? And so, there are definitely relationships out there where the man definitely should not say what I said to Neisha. That will not work, and it will not go well, and it could lead to other problems. But one thing I want every man in every relationship to know is that your health and what you eat absolutely matters when it comes to reproductive health. So often women are kind of shackled with the tyranny of, oh, this is all on you, whether you get pregnant or not. And there are so many men out there who are just eating a crap diet, drinking too much alcohol, living a stupid lifestyle. And that is directly affecting the chances of this partnership becoming pregnant. But there are a lot of men who just think, oh, that's her thing. I don't know, I'm just going to drink my beer and eat my Cheetos. And we can't get pregnant. I don't know what's wrong with her. And that's absolutely the wrong mindset to have going into this. At the very least, you should be eating a super healthy diet in support of her. We know that for sure. But then also more and more research is coming out every day that sperm count, sperm mobility, sperm robustness, all those things are directly related to a man's diet, to his lifestyle, to his sleep, to everything, all that. And so, there are a lot of women carrying this huge, heavy burden of, I can't get pregnant, when it's his damn fault the whole time.
Well, it takes two, right?
Absolutely.
It's a team effort. So it's like you said, a lot of times it's put on the woman, and the man is like, I'll be supportive, but I'm going to continue to do all the things that I'm doing, and I'm healthy, I'm fine. No one has told me I need to do anything different, so I'm not going to change anything. But for the most part, I think people watching this are probably not in that category.
No, I really love it. I agree with you, Ken. When you build those kind of relationships where you can be absolutely direct with your partner, and when you come from the place of love, not just judgment, but love. It makes a huge difference. What I love about Laban is he was always next to me when I was going through pregnancy losses. And I was wondering, Neisha, whether you had this moment like I did, when I couldn't get pregnant and then I would get pregnant and then I would lose the pregnancy. I felt like I would lose Laban. I was blaming myself and I was developing this anxiety that he gonna leave me because, and go and make a baby with someone else. Like, did you have anything? And if you did, how did you?
No, but that's mostly because that wasn't something that was put on me as a pressure, because Ken already had children from previous marriage. So it was like, it wasn't on me to give him that, and we were trying to have a baby together. And I think Laban probably feels that way too. He doesn't want just a kid. He wants y'all's kid, your baby together. And so that was just how I saw it for us together. It's like, he doesn't want just a baby. He wants our baby. And whether or not that comes or it doesn't come doesn't change us as a partnership. And we had other goals in life as well. And I'm a very realistic person when it comes to, like, I look ahead, what's the worst thing that can happen and what am I going to do? So my whole thing was like, okay, well, if I can't get pregnant, I have a million other things I want to do with him. We'll travel the world. I have my step kids that I love very, very much, and I'm active in their lives. And I just wouldn't let that be this thing that took me over, because we were more than just making a baby together. Our marriage is because of us, and our kids are the icing on top of the cupcake, because one day, the kids will leave, but we'll still be together, right? And so that's just how I always looked at it. It was not something that burdened me. I was that's just my personality. I can always look past what I want to see the other side of the coin. Like, if I don't get that, there's always this. There's a beautiful life ahead anyways. But then we were very blessed with Beckett and then with Bonnie.
I love it. I love it.
I think just going back to the trauma healing component, Neisha, and I certainly wouldn't expect you to reveal anything you weren't comfortable with. But when Anna and I got together, I was 38 and I've lived a life of degeneracy, and I put it all in a book and put it out into the world so no one could ever hold it against me. But I said to Anna before the book was out, you can ask me anything you want about my past as long as you are happy to hear the answer. I didn't realize that she was going to take me up on it. And boy, howdy, did she go to town. But what happened, and this was in the first few months of our relationship, is that I was forced to reveal some things about my history and my past that were very shameful to me at the time. But and really one or two of them almost sort of ended things. But once we got over that and Anna realized that it was not that much of a big deal, and it had this amazing foundation of trust that we built. And it was a year later that Anna revealed to me about the sexual abuse that took place. And I was only the second person in her entire life to know that. And so that's how that healing journey started. You mentioned stoicism and letting things go. Is there any other things or practical applications that you can remember that were really instrumental in helping you heal?
Mostly it was just acknowledging that I'm the person giving those past traumas power. That it's within my power to take that power away. And realizing that I'm just not the kind of person that's going to be a victim. I always want to be a victor. And so that's just my personality. And anytime any past trauma felt like it was interfering with what I wanted, it made me angry and made me push past whatever pain And I'm not saying I'm perfect. Like there's still a few things that I have from day to day. I have to remind myself I have all the power. This doesn't have any power over me. I'm blessed. I am grateful. And we're not going to let this take hold of this day. And I just take every day, one day at a time. And if you do that, then it's easier than saying, I have to let this go for the rest. If I ever think about this again, then I'm failing. But it's not like that. You have to take baby steps. And meditation, some people meditate for different reasons. I call it brain exercise, flexing the muscle of recentering your thoughts. So I don't like meditate and say different things, or it's just the practice of me thinking nothing, and when something creeps in, pushing it back, so that when I'm going about my day and a negative feeling comes, I can know that in my conscious brain instead of letting it creep in, and before I know it, I'm spiraling through something that happened 5 years ago and I'm upset about something that I can't change. And so the minute it creeps in, I'm like, I don't want to think about that. I'm going to go do something productive, or I'm going to go work, or I'm going to go play with the kids or whatever. And that's really the core to success for me, was just realizing I have the power. And the more you worry and stress and let past things hurt you, you're giving those other people power. And I don't want them to have any power. Yep. I want to forget that they existed. And I have like many things. I am good. I'm done. There's just a few things that I still have some days where I'm like, you know what? I really would love to be petty right now. But I'm moving past it. I take every day, and every day that I'm not petty, I count as a win. So. And
this is something, the years that I am exceedingly proud of Neisha, to have watched that muscle grow in her over the years, because that used to be a problem. And to watch her literally go inside of her own mind and heart and soul and tinker and fix things and to realize, and I think this might be a useful thing for other people who are victims of trauma, either crime or just, abuse, is that those people, and she kind of hinted at this, they've probably already forgotten about you. For them, that wasn't a big deal at all. They might even not even think they did anything wrong.
Right. Yeah.
But yet here you are still crippling your future, focusing on whatever that event was, and still giving them power that they don't need and probably don't even want, because they've moved on to the next project. They're not even thinking about that. And you're still handing them power, and they've got their back turned to you. They don't even remember you potentially. And to watch her grow like that, it was almost crippling at times for her to be thinking about the past so much. And now for her to watch her grow in that respect and just bloom into somebody who's all about the present and the future. And every now and then the past will grab her by the ankle, but it doesn't hold on for long, because she kicks it off and comes right back to the present and the future.
The real problem for me was it wasn't holding me back. I would use it as fuel. My anger, like I will show these people how wrong they were about me, and how, look at me now, and I'm going to nursing school, and now I'm an LPN, and now I'm an RN, and I'm going to get my NP, and I'm going to show these people. And I felt that was good, that anger to push me forward and drive me. I used it as a driving force. That was like my coping mechanism, right? But it took me till I was with Ken to see that actually was still holding me back by being angry and using that as fuel, that wasn't my only fuel. There were other ways to be motivated, to be driven, and to drive towards my goals than just anger. Mm-hmm. And so it never held me back. It always fueled me forward, but it was still very toxic.
Yes, well said. Anger can be a great motivator, but it's still a negative emotion, ultimately.
It's not healthy.
No.
Right.
To run on this fuel all the time.
It's a cancer. If you let it just eat at you and eat at you,
it's like running on carbs the entire time.
Yeah. There's a better option here. You don't have to be angry all the time.
It can work, but there's better options.
when I wrote my book in 2020, it was one of the most cathartic healing experiences of my life. And I would have, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it now, I had periods where I wept and afterwards had this huge release. And I'm curious to know, Ken, you've written this incredible book, Lies My Doctor Told Me. And Neisha, is there a book being put away as we speak?
Yes. Yeah. I've been talking about it for years. And actually the inspiration behind, I have two books that I want to do. One is like not serious and one is serious, but the inspiration behind the serious one is Jordan Peterson has a writing course. I can't even remember what it's called.
Future Self, I think, is it called?
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right.
Future Authoring or Future Self or something. Yeah.
Right. And his very first assignment is to write about your trauma, like the worst thing, your worst memory, and to write it in 100% honesty. And I did that. I didn't take his course, but I heard him talking about that being the first one. And so I did that. And it's so interesting to see how your brain remembers things and then how your brain feels after you've poured something like that off into a page. Even if you don't publish it, like you said, it's very cathartic.
Cathartic.
Yeah. And if that's helpful for you as a person, there's probably someone else out there that it would be helpful for too. I'm sure your book has done that for other people, but it's hard to talk about things when you're like, these are real people in my stories, and they have families, and their families have kids, and so you have to be very smart about how you talk about things, like you are in your book, but still be able to get the point across. Like, these things happen, this is where it went, now I'm here, those type of things. So yeah, one day maybe. There's a lot to tell.
I have a challenge for it, because what I did is I deliberately left the names of people out when I was talking about it was not at all from a place of victimhood at all. It was this is what I've done. Left those names out and celebrated and included the names of people that were instrumental in my healing journey. You still won't please everybody. And my trauma is nothing more innocuous than being a child of divorce, right? And the associated custody battles, like not that you should ever compare, like Jordan Peterson says, but compared to what Anna went through is just not even in the same ballpark. But one of the things that I'm very good at, Neisha, is I'm affectionately known as the world's best courage coach. And I teach people how to take bold, massive, and courageous action so that they can facilitate their own miraculous outcomes. And my encouragement to you, and Ken, to support Neisha in this, is I want you to think about who is the dream person to write the foreword for your book. And if you know who that is, let me know right now. But if you don't, and it's not your nana, it's not, your friend down the road, it's someone who can add a lot of credibility. Do you know who that person is?
My dream person? Like, if I could just pick anybody, that's Dolly Parton, probably.
So now I want to pose a challenge, because you guys are in Nashville, right?
Yeah.
The people, the circles that you're in, with the impact that the YouTube channels have got, and the impact that, the people you're kicking around with, you're about 1 degree of separation from Dolly Parton. But you can't go to Dolly Parton without a finished book. So my challenge for you, Neisha, is to ask yourself this question: who do I need to be in order for Dolly Parton to want to write the foreword for my book? And I don't know Dolly Parton personally, but I would be willing to bet that the very same reason that you chose to come on our humble podcast when you've got 3+ million subscribers on, probably more, is because you like to serve. And it would be the same with Dolly. Who can she serve by endorsing a book? And the encouragement that I would give you is to put it all in the book. Don't hold anything back, because I don't know if you guys know Les Brown, the motivational speaker.
I've heard of him.
So if he was a hero, he is a hero of mine for years. And I invited him on the podcast when I had 8 episodes. I had about 10 subscribers. This is mid-May 2020.
And half of them were his family.
Half of them were my family. And he came on, and before we even started the podcast, gave me the blueprint for my book, offered to interview me on his 4 million plus social media and to write the foreword for my book without me out. And he did that. And I'm paraphrasing the story because the story is incredible. But now we are friends, and we had dinner at his home in Atlanta last year, the greatest motivational speaker of our generation. And so my encouragement to you, Neisha, is to think about, who do I need to be in order for Dolly Parton to want to write the foreword and endorse that book?
Imagine how many women would want to read this. How many women need to hear your story. You can see you already make a huge impact in this world. And I know it on my own experience. I did not want to talk about my childhood abuse. Like, I would rather die. But then Laban told me one thing that changed my perspective completely. He said, Anna, imagine there is one girl who needs to hear your story that will save her life. And guess what? A few years later, I met this girl. She was 11 years old when something similar happened to her. And when she heard my story, it totally changed her life. She wanted to kill herself. She didn't want to live. And now she's thriving. She's on more podcasts than I've been to.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Sharing her story. Mm-hmm.
The other thing as well, and you know, Ken, you talk about Neisha with adoration, such adoration, which it's really inspiring for me as a man, and I know other men will see that as well. Anna finally felt comfortable sharing what happened with her mother in September 2020. And the mother and the stepfather had been split up for years and years and years. And her mum went full mama bear crazy and called the police. And this was in the middle of the lockdowns. We were in Melbourne, Australia, so we were in strict lockdowns. The Russian police subpoenaed Anna to...
I'm originally from Russia.
Yeah, to testify in person in Russia. And the Australian government, given all the information about what was required, the translation of the subpoena, and rejected Anna's application to leave the country. And then we finally found some Facebook groups, and the second one got approved, and Anna flew to Russia and got there with a few hours to spare to do this thing. And they put her through, you know, these polygraphs and these physical examinations, and they ended up dismissing it because there wasn't enough evidence. It's been such a long time.
20 years.
But then Anna went to 3 major magazines there, and one of the magazines, the largest magazine, picked up her story, and it went crazy viral. And in Russia, they don't talk about these kind of things in the same way with the same freedom. And why don't you tell them what happened?
From being like totally quiet about my story, and it has been eating me like a cancer from the inside, like you said, to telling my story to the whole country, literally. I just realized we didn't have any childhood sexual abuse survivors support in my hometown. And I felt like I want to do something. And so I told my story, and one journalist only agreed to publish because it was a very heavy story, very heavy. And I had like 25,000 views in the first 24 hours. And I left my email address in this article saying, girls, if you are going through something similar and you have no one to talk to about this, send me an email. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails from women and men sharing their story with me. Some of them was like really hard to read. And then I realized how many people are still suffering in silence and not talking about this. That's how I decided to start my own podcast and share my story.
That's amazing.
So this is, you guys are on our podcast. We're not on your podcast, but we think it's relevant, the context. So Dolly Parton's going to write the forward for Neisha's book. Ken, have you got another book on the way?
Yeah, I'm working on at least 2 right now. And the largest part of my process of writing a book, the first few months to few years, is just rolling it over in my head, thinking about how I'm going to approach it, how it needs to be said. And so I'm in that process with those 2 right now. I've got some stuff on paper, not a lot yet, but working on that. But yeah, I've got, and then, I love writing. I also hate writing. And so that sounds like those 2 don't go together, but I love when it comes together. I love that part of it, but the beginning and then the editing, I abhor the process. I have ADHD, and it's pure torture for me to sit down and sit still. And writing, the first part is creative, so I'm okay with that. But the editing, actually reading something I wrote, it's like, yeah, I know what it says. I wrote it. So why? But that's a necessary process to edit and rewrite. And it's pure torture for me. And so I have to be in the right mindset to get started on that part of it. And that's coming up in a few months. I'm going to start doing that part of it. But yeah, I've got several books in mind.
Well, it's great to hear, Ken. And what a lot of people probably don't realize is that up until recently, you 2 took care of everything.
Yes.
Everything. And
yes.
I would love for you to share, if it's okay, how much better has your life gotten since you've learned to say no and outsource a number of things?
I mean, we did really well. It just got to what triggered everything was I wasn't spending time with the kids as much as I wanted to. I was like, I'm working from home. And the whole point, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm working a 12-hour shift as a nurse so I can spend the time with my kids and do all the things that I want to do when I want to do them. And I'm just busy. And when I'm not busy, I'm exhausted from doing all the other things. So I just stopped making YouTube videos. Then I decided, 3 weeks into my YouTube hiatus, I was like, I think it's time we hire some people to come in and help us, and also help us reach more people, because we had kind of plateaued when it comes to growth, because we want to do bigger things that can influence people in a different way. Like, we would love to do a docu-series. We would love to do small retreats where we can really get to know people and make a difference in their lives, like these other projects that we've been wanting to do, but we don't really know how to do them. Mm-hmm. We need people to come in and take over the small things so we can do bigger projects that really may move the needle, right? Like, we can, this is a grassroots movement. Let's do another level to make it even more, reach more people in a deeper way, because watching a YouTube video, that's influence, right? Listening to a podcast, you're influenced. But when we meet people in person and we're able to really get to know them, that's an experience. They are better able to understand what we're asking them to commit to and why they want to commit to it. And then by the end of the time that we're together with these people, these aren't even our retreats. These are other people's retreats that we just go and visit. They go home and they are changed because they've spent time in an environment that there aren't thousands of other people, like the big conventions. These are just like 20 to 50 people. And we want to do things like that, because that's a trickle down effect too. When we change those people's lives in that way, they go home, they change their husband's life, their aunt, their sister, their cousin, because they're even more invested in their health, because now they feel that deep connection to the why, which is a better life, to live longer, live healthier, and be the best husband, best wife, best daughter, best mother, right? All that comes from being a healthy person mentally and physically. And so life is not easier yet. We're still in the transition phase of giving these things over to people. So they're learning our ways, learning how we like things done. We're very picky. I'm a very, very detail oriented person. Like I like things a very specific way. So they have to come back 3 or 4 times still and say, okay, is this okay? And then we're like, no, that's not right either. And so we're still in that transition phase. I think maybe in 6 months, we'll feel a little bit of that, there's a load off. But just because we've spent the past 6 years building this relationship with people, we don't want them to feel like everything is different, because it's not. It's still us talking, it's still us speaking, it's still us messaging. We just have other people doing the tiny things. But if you let people do tiny things in a completely different way, then it feels like we've abandoned them or something like that. So we definitely don't want it to feel like that. So we're taking the time to make sure it's done properly, the way that we've been doing it for 6, almost 7 years now.
Yeah. And when she approached me with this idea of retaining a team of people that would do all the day-to-day minutia, my first thought was excellent, because not for myself, but because I know what a badass Neisha is, but not nearly enough people in the world know that about her and have had the chance to benefit from that. The amount of value that she can give people in their life, relationships, health, nutrition, wellness, lifestyle, like the amount of value that she can add to people's lives, nobody has a clue except me. And so when she came to me with this, I'm like, 100% yes, pull the trigger right now, because it's time for you to shine, because nobody knows what I know about this woman. But they're about to find out, because this is going to free up so many hours of her day that she's not just bogged down with scheduling this and making sure this is right and updating this. Now she no longer has to deal with that kind of stuff, which is for her to have to spend time doing that is almost a travesty. It would be like, having Beethoven tune your piano instead of writing something beautiful. That's kind of what Neisha's been bogged down doing. And I'm so happy that she's free from that. And I want her to take a step back and take a deep breath and go, okay, now where can I really have the most effect in this world? Who needs to hear my voice the most? And I can't wait to see what comes of that.
Well, anything we can do to help you blow that out into the world is the least we can do, because this is a great example. We have a limited time, and we'll wrap this up in a minute, but like there's a million questions that we have, and I know the audience will have around. Neisha, what did you eat specifically from before and after the Hashimoto's that we can't cover in these shorter form podcasts, that if it was in a book or in some kind of training would be super beneficial? So it's really inspirational for us to continue to keep outsourcing the things that don't serve us very well. And we can't thank you enough. I know you probably hear this a lot, but we can't thank you enough for the personal impact that you've had on our lives, and anecdotally, the many, many people that have benefited from you guys having your own massive set of cojones, putting yourself in the gun, having your businesses and house burnt down, under suspicious circumstances, because you're trying to serve and help people. And all I want to say on behalf of everyone is to do not stop. Do not give up. I know that you won't, but please do not. People need you in the world.
Thank you so much. And I don't think we have any plans to stop. Somebody asked me the other day, what are you going to do when you retire? And I was like that concept is so foreign to me that I had to look at them, and they were actually serious. And I said, why would I retire from doing the thing that I love most to do, which is to teach and to help and to lift up and to shine a light on truth and health and honesty? What would possess me to stop wanting to do that? What are you even talking about? And so I think we both kind of feel that way. Like, you want me to retire from living my best life?
Retirement is what people do when they hate their job, right? even in the blue zones, we've learned that not nutrition, maybe that's dumb, but there are some things that the blue zones teach us. He just made a Twitter post about, well, X, Twitter, or whatever, about what we can learn. And one of them was that you need a purpose. And this has been our driving purpose since before we ever met, was to help people. It just looks different now than it did when I was a CNA or an LPN or RN, or he was a ER doctor. It's just a different version of what we've always done. So it may evolve over the years. It may look different. It may be more books. It may be more travel to different places where we can talk to people that maybe don't watch our YouTube videos, meet new people. It may evolve, but retirement is just not an option.
Yeah, amen. Hey, where can people find you guys?
You can find me everywhere. I take that back. You can find him everywhere. I'm on 3 major platforms, really. My favorite is YouTube. Second favorite is Instagram. And then I just happen to post on Facebook every now and then. So if you just look up Neisha Berry on Google, everything's going to pop up. I also have a blog, NeishaLovesIt.com. And of course, I'm in our community all the time. We do live streams in there, and I talk to people and get to know people a little bit better. It's a lot more intimate than Instagram. I can really get to know people in our community. And so that's the main places you can find me.
Yeah, and I've got a small YouTube channel people can look up. And if I'm feeling especially snarky, you'll find me on Twitter. And if I'm feeling loving and gentle, you'll find me on Instagram or Facebook. And if I'm feeling informational, I'll be over on the YouTube channel. And we have a large private community with thousands of people from all over the world. We've got some Kiwis in there. We've got people from every country. I don't know if there's anyone on Antarctica in our private group, but maybe there's a researcher there. I'm not sure. But we spend a lot of time in there really forging relationships that can help people not only change their life, but keep it changed, because I think that's something that's often overlooked. And we're in there doing lives all the time and answering questions. And so that's where you can find me. And then I've got the Lies My Doctor Told Me on Amazon. And I've got a new book out called Kicking Ass After 50 that I wrote with my good friend Zane Griggs. That's also on Amazon, now available as an Audible in case you've got ADHD like me and you have to be doing something while you read a book. You can listen to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Before we go, do you have any concluding thoughts?
I'm really excited that we had a conversation that didn't just focus around food today. And I really appreciate you guys having us on so we can talk about other things that matter, because these things matter too. So I really appreciate you having us both on.
Yeah, and just as there is a proper human diet that you must honor for your best physical health, there is a proper human life that with principles that you must adhere to if you want your life to have meaning, if you want your life to touch other people, if you want, when your great-grandchildren think back about you, those are positive memories. Those are memories of, I'm proud that he was my great-grandfather. There is a proper human life, and there are principles to that as well. And we're so happy to start talking more about that. And obviously a proper human diet's part of that. But there are other principles to that go along with it that in many cases are just as important as the food that you eat. So thanks for having us on, guys. You guys are an amazing couple, and we're happy to collaborate anytime.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ken and Neisha Berry.